the return of industry to the UK. That sounds like a good news story.
It is a good news story, and I was kind of conscious that what we might end up doing in these podcasts is lots of doom and gloom. So I think it is good for us to follow a good news story. And I think, lots of things I disagree with about in the current government, but what I do agree with them really strongly on is their growth agenda. I'm not quite sure that their strategies are right, but we definitely need growth. We need a bigger pie so that we can finance all the things that we want to do to make people's lives better. So 2 stories struck me this week about examples of industry coming back to the UK. One is hotter shoes, which I'm guessing you're not familiar with. They're not really for your demographic.
No.
So they're comfy shoes for older people.
See, I hear hotter shoes. That terrifies me because I get really hot feet. So I think I need colder shoes, not hotter shoes.
Okay, I think they originally started off making slippers. That's where the name comes from. But they now make a range of comfortable shoes, which I very much approve of. Now, they have in the past been using factories in India to produce their shoes, but they are now bringing that manufacturing back to Skelmersdale in Lancashire, and they will, I think, given their demographic, a lot of what their demographic wants is British-made shoes, so that's what they're going to be doing. They're going to be really ramping up their UK manufacture and making sure that they can produce stuff in the UK rather than outsourcing stuff to places like India. Mm-hmm. So good news.
Excellent.
Especially for Skelmersdale.
Okay, what was the other example of industry coming back?
So the other example is probably a bit more high-tech. It's Sheffield Forgemasters. Now, you might think, well, that's just steel banging and it's, very old-fashioned kind of industry, but actually it's a new advanced manufacturing facility in Meadowhall in Sheffield. It's a massive site, about the size of 12 Olympic swimming pools, if you want to measure using that generally accepted measurement stick.
I go off football pitches.
Yes.
What's it in football pitches? Quick
conversion,
come on.
Somebody will work that out at some point, I'm sure. And it's going to have the most advanced 5-axis vertical turning lathes. Now, you're going to ask me exactly what a vertical turning lathe is. I don't really know, but it sounds fantastic, doesn't it? And they're going to use this to increase their production of goods that are used in UK defence industry. So, having more security over that kind of manufacture seems to me a really good idea.
Okay, great. So what is it more expensive for them to be doing it over here? Because that's what I always was brought up to believe. I remember globalisation lessons in geography when I was at school. They would always say that the reason for globalisation is that it was cheaper to do certain things elsewhere. So, you were talking about hotter shoes manufacturing in India. Why would they come back to the UK? Because to me, it always, that's what I was always taught, that it would be more expensive to build things in the UK.
So the guy at Hotter Shoes was saying that actually the price of manufacture in the UK is actually only very slightly more expensive than India. And as they ramp up production in Skelmersdale, that will bring down the unit cost so that it will be actually quite competitive compared to the cost of doing it in India. The other thing I wanted to mention about the Sheffield one, the Forgemasters one, was that next door to the new manufacturing facilities, they are building separately a new training centre for engineers. So, I think this is really fantastic news where an employer is actually stepping up to the plate and taking responsibility for training a new generation of engineers who will, be really high-skilled, high-paid workers for them in the north. So, this is kind of levelling up in action.
When I was at school, the sort of pathways that were on offer to us weren't into things like engineering. And I think it would be amazing for younger people to want to go into engineering and for the state to say to them, this is what we need. We need engineers. We were talking about housing last week. A lot of it is just communicating that to the younger generation and saying, we're going to need the people to build these houses. So that go in, choose these pathways, go into these careers, because you can actually contribute to the infrastructure of the country.
Absolutely, and I think a lot of these jobs will, I imagine, come through an apprenticeship route. So, for a lot of people, I can think that that would be quite attractive compared to the alternative of building up quite a lot of debt going through a university route. And I think the key thing here about the employer themselves doing the training is that they will train people in what they need them to be trained in. I do think there's a bit of an issue with the apprenticeship system at the moment, in that a lot of that work is contracted out to training providers, and training providers don't always know what employers want. So the quality of the training that they provide can be quite patchy. So employers actually taking responsibility and doing it themselves, I think, is a real, so much better way forward.
And with apprenticeships, I have quite a negative view of apprenticeships from, I think a lot of people my age believe that it's just a way of companies paying a cheaper wage to people. Were apprenticeships a sort of a respected thing in the past? Absolutely.
I think, remember that an employer's paying a lower wage initially because those people are not that productive. And they are effectively being paid in part by the training and skills and experience that people are passing on to them. And I do think there's a lot of employers now who are thinking, actually, it's much better to use the apprenticeship route. Certainly in financial services, which is the industry I was previously in, there are now employers who only take people through an apprenticeship route.